The first light of dawn crept through the tall windows of Kensington Palace, painting the elegant rooms in soft golden hues. It was no ordinary morning. Today, the entire nation would witness something that happens only once in a generation: a coronation. Inside the royal residence, the Wales family was already stirring, knowing that this day would be etched in history books forever. Princess Kate was the first to wake, her internal clock always reliable on important days. She had barely slept, her mind racing through the endless details that needed perfect execution. As she slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her husband, she caught her reflection in the ornate mirror. Today, she would stand beside the future king as they watched his father receive the crown. The weight of that moment wasn't lost on her. Prince William remained asleep for a few more precious minutes, but even in his dreams, he couldn't escape the significance of the day ahead. When he finally opened his eyes, he found his wife already dressed in her robe, quietly moving about their room. She turned to him with that reassuring smile he had grown to love over the years. No words were needed between them. They both understood what today meant for their family and their country. Down the hallway, the children's rooms were beginning to show signs of life. Prince George, even at his young age, seemed to grasp the importance of the occasion. He had been talking about it for weeks, asking countless questions about what would happen and what his role would be. His mother had patiently explained everything, knowing that one day he would experience his own coronation. But for now, he was simply a boy trying to understand why everyone seemed so excited and nervous at the same time. Princess Charlotte had woken up earlier than usual, her excitement bubbling over. She had been looking forward to wearing her special dress and seeing all the fancy carriages and horses. In her mind, it was like stepping into one of her favorite fairy tales, except this time, she was part of the story. She bounced on her bed, humming softly to herself until she heard footsteps in the corridor. Prince Louis, the youngest of the three, was still fast asleep when his nanny gently woke him. At his age, the full meaning of the coronation was beyond his understanding, but he could sense the excitement in the air. Everyone around him seemed to be moving with purpose, speaking in hushed, important tones. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and asked for his favorite stuffed animal, not quite ready to face the busy day ahead. The palace staff had been preparing for this morning for months. Every detail had been planned and rehearsed. The headdresser arrived early, carrying the carefully pressed ceremonial clothes. The children's outfits had been fitted multiple times to ensure perfect comfort throughout the long day. Prince George's formal attire made him look remarkably grown up, while Princess Charlotte's dress was elegant yet appropriate for a young girl who might need to sit still for hours. In the kitchen, the chef prepared a light but nutritious breakfast. He knew the family would need energy for the long day ahead, but nothing too heavy that might cause discomfort during the ceremony. Fresh fruit, perfectly toasted bread, and gentle herbal teas were arranged on the finest china. Even breakfast felt ceremonial on this extraordinary morning. Princess Kate moved between her children's rooms like a conductor orchestrating a symphony. She helped Princess Charlotte with her hair, making sure every strand was in place while still allowing her daughter to feel comfortable and natural. With Prince George, she reviewed once more what would happen during the ceremony, reassuring him that he would do wonderfully. Prince Louis received extra attention, as keeping a young child content during such a formal event required special preparation. Prince William found himself standing at the window, looking out at the London skyline. Somewhere out there, millions of people were preparing to watch this historic day unfold. Some would line the streets, others would gather around television screens. He thought about his father, who was probably going through his own morning preparations, carrying the weight of becoming king. Soon William himself would be one step closer to that same destiny. The dress rehearsals from previous weeks had helped, but nothing could truly prepare them for the real thing. Princess Kate checked her appearance one final time, knowing that every detail would be scrutinized by cameras and royal watchers around the world. Her outfit had been chosen months ago, every element carefully considered to show respect for tradition while representing the modern face of the monarchy. As the morning progressed, the palace filled with the quiet energy of people working toward a single momentous goal. Security personnel conducted their final checks, Communication devices crackled with updates and vehicles were brought to perfect readiness. The children seemed to absorb this atmosphere, their own excitement building as they realized they were part of something truly special. Prince George stood still as palace staff made final adjustments to his formal wear. He caught glimpses of himself in the mirror and was amazed at how different he looked. His parents had taught him about the responsibility that came with his position, but today it felt more real than ever before. He was no longer just a boy, playing dress-up. He was representing the future of the royal family. Princess Charlotte twirled in front of her mirror, delighted with how her dress moved with her. Her mother gently reminded her to save her energy for the day ahead, but couldn't help smiling at her daughter's joy. In many ways, Charlotte's innocent excitement perfectly captured what this day meant: a celebration, a new beginning, and a moment of pure happiness for the entire nation. The final preparations moved with clockwork precision. Shoes were polished. To mirror perfection, jewelry was carefully positioned and every hair was checked one last time. Princess Kate took a deep breath as she looked at her family, all dressed in their finest, ready to witness history. Prince William straightened his uniform and offered his arm to his wife, a gesture both formal and intimate. Prince Louis held tightly to his mother's hand, still not entirely sure what all the fuss was about, but sensing that it must be something very important. His parents had explained that they were going to see grandfather receive a very special crown, and that seemed exciting enough for him. As they prepared to leave their private apartments and step into the public eye, the Wales family shared a quiet moment together. Soon they would be in front of cameras and crowds, representing not just themselves but the future of the British monarchy. Prince William looked at his wife and children, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride and responsibility. The morning preparations were complete. Every button was fastened, every detail perfect. They were ready to leave the comfort of their home and step into history. The coronation awaited, and with it, a day that would be remembered for generations to come. As they walked toward the door that would lead them to their waiting car, each member of the Wales family carried with them the hopes and dreams of a nation ready to embrace its future. The heavy doors of Kensington Palace swung open, and the Wales family stepped into a world transformed. Outside, London had dressed itself in its finest colors for the coronation. Red, white, and blue bunting fluttered from every lamppost, and the morning air buzzed with an energy that seemed to pulse through the very streets. This wasn't just any journey across the city. This was a passage through history itself. Prince William helped his wife into the gleaming state car, a vehicle that had carried royalty for decades. The leather seats held the stories of countless important moments, and today they would add another chapter. Princess Kate settled gracefully beside her husband, her outfit catching the morning light perfectly. She had chosen every detail carefully, knowing that millions of eyes would be watching their every move. The children climbed in with a mixture of excitement and careful behavior. Prince George sat up straight, trying to look as grown-up as possible. He had been practicing his royal wave for weeks, and today he would finally get to use it for real. Princess Charlotte bounced slightly in her seat, her eyes wide with wonder at all the decorations she could see through the windows. Prince Louis pressed his small face against the glass, pointing at everything that caught his attention. As the convoy began to move, the first crowds came into view. People had been gathering since the early hours of the morning, many bringing folding chairs, thermos flasks, and homemade signs. Some had traveled from far corners of the country just for this moment. Others were locals who had simply stepped out of their homes to be part of something special. The sight of so many happy faces filled the car with warmth. The driver took the planned route slowly, allowing people along the way to catch glimpses of the future king and his family. Through the bulletproof windows the Wales family could see children waving tiny flags, elderly couples pointing excitedly, and teenagers holding up their phones to capture the moment. It was like moving through a living, breathing celebration that stretched as far as the eye could see. Prince Louis was the first to start waving back, his small hand moving enthusiastically against the window. His innocent joy was infectious, and soon Princess Charlotte joined in, her practiced royal wave drawing cheers from the crowd. Even Prince George, trying to maintain his composure, couldn't help but smile and wave when he saw other children his age jumping up and down with excitement. Princess Kate watched her children with a mixture of pride and gentle guidance. She would occasionally lean over to point out particularly enthusiastic groups of well-wishers, teaching her children that these moments were about connecting with people, not just being seen by them. Her own wave was graceful and warm, acknowledging the love and support that radiated from every street corner. The journey took them through some of London's most historic neighborhoods. They passed buildings that had witnessed centuries of royal processions, streets where kings and queens had traveled before them, and landmarks that represented the very heart of British history. Prince William found himself thinking about all the royal journeys that had taken this same route, wondering what his ancestors had felt during their own momentous occasions. At Hyde Park Corner, the crowds grew even thicker. People had climbed trees for better views, others balanced on shoulders, and some had brought ladders and stepladders. The enthusiasm was overwhelming and beautiful. Street vendors moved through the crowd selling flags, badges, and commemorative items. The whole scene felt like the world's biggest street party, with the royal family as honored guests traveling through the middle of it all. Princess Charlotte spotted a group of schoolchildren who were all wearing matching t-shirts with the date of the coronation printed on them. She waved extra enthusiastically at them, and they responded with excited screams and jumps. Their teacher was trying to keep them in line, but even she was grinning from ear to ear. These were the moments that made the formal ceremony feel personal and real. The security around them was invisible but ever present. Motorcycles flanked the convoy, and officers positioned along the route kept watchful eyes on everything. But, rather than feeling restrictive, the protection allowed the family to relax and enjoy the incredible display of public affection surrounding them. They were safe to be themselves, to wave, smile, and share in the joy of the day. As they approached Westminster, the crowds became even more dense. People had clearly been waiting for hours, and their patience was being rewarded with this magical procession. Prince Louis had started a game of trying to count all the Union Jack flags he could see, but he quickly gave up when he realized there were simply too many. Every window, every balcony, every available space seemed to be decorated with symbols of celebration. Prince William reached over and took his wife's hand, a small gesture that spoke volumes. They were in this together, as they had been through everything else. The weight of representing their country, their family, and their future felt lighter when shared. Princess Kate squeezed back, her smile reflecting both the joy of the moment and the deep love they shared. An elderly woman near the roadside caught Princess Kate's attention. She was sitting in a wheelchair, wrapped in a blanket decorated with royal portraits, and she was crying tears of joy as the car passed. Princess Kate made sure to wave directly at her, and the woman's face lit up with pure happiness. These personal connections, even lasting just seconds, were what made the pageantry meaningful. The children had started pointing out different things they noticed. Prince George was fascinated by the police horses, their riders sitting tall and proud in ceremonial uniforms. Princess Charlotte was enchanted by all the fancy hats she could see in the crowd, already planning what she might wear to future royal events. Prince Louis was simply amazed by the sheer number of people, asking again and again how they all knew to come and watch. Street musicians had positioned themselves along the route, playing patriotic songs and royal favorites. The music drifted through the closed windows of the car, creating a soundtrack for their journey through the celebrating city. Some bands had clearly practiced for weeks, while others seemed to be improvising with joyful enthusiasm. All of it added to the festival atmosphere that had taken over London. As Westminster Abbey came into view, the family felt a shift in the atmosphere. The crowds here were different, more formal, with many people dressed in their absolute finest clothes. These were the people who had obtained special viewing positions for the arrival at the Abbey itself. The excitement was just as intense, but it carried with it a deeper sense of the historical significance of what was about to happen. The journey across London had been more than just transportation from one place to another. It had been a celebration, a connection with the people they served, and a reminder of why the monarchy mattered to so many. As their car approached the final turn toward Westminster Abbey, The Wales family carried with them the warmth and love of everyone they had encountered. Along the way, the state car rolled to a gentle stop in front of Westminster Abbey, and suddenly the world seemed to hold its breath. This ancient building had witnessed over 1,000 years of history, coronations of kings and queens, royal weddings, and state funerals. Today it would add another golden chapter to its remarkable story. The Wales family sat for just a moment in the quiet sanctuary of their car, taking in the magnitude of what lay ahead. Outside, Westminster Abbey looked like something from a fairy tale. Centuries-old stone walls rose majestically toward the sky, their Gothic spires reaching up as if trying to touch heaven itself. Every surface had been cleaned and polished until it gleamed in the morning sunlight. Colorful banners hung from the ancient walls, and fresh flowers decorated every entrance. The building seemed to radiate both power and peace, exactly as it had for generations of royal ceremonies. Prince William took a deep breath and straightened his naval uniform one final time. As he prepared to step out, he felt the weight of history on his shoulders. His father was about to be crowned king inside these walls, and one day he himself would follow the same path. But for now, he was simply a son supporting his father on the most important day of his reign. His hand moved to the car door handle, and he felt his wife's reassuring touch on his arm. The car door opened and Prince William stepped onto the red carpet that had been rolled out for their arrival. The cameras immediately began clicking and flashing, creating a symphony of sound that mixed with the cheers from the gathered crowd. He stood tall and confident, every inch the future king, before turning to help his wife emerge from the car. This simple gesture of courtesy had been repeated by royal husbands for generations, and it never failed to capture hearts. Princess Kate appeared like something from a dream. Her outfit had been chosen months ago, but seeing it in the full light of this historic day made it seem even more perfect. Every detail spoke of respect for tradition, while embracing the modern spirit she brought to the royal family. Her hair caught the morning breeze gently, and her smile radiated warmth and confidence. She paused for just a moment, allowing the photographers to capture this entrance that would be remembered for decades. The children emerged next, and the crowd's reaction was immediate and heartwarming. Prince George stepped out with remarkable composure for someone his age. He had been preparing for this moment through countless practice sessions, and it showed in every confident step he took. His formal attire made him look surprisingly grown up, yet his youthful face reminded everyone that the future of the monarchy was literally in young hands. Princess Charlotte followed, and her natural grace was evident from the moment her feet touched the red carpet. She had been excited about this day for weeks, and her joy was infectious. Her dress moved beautifully as she walked, and her confident posture showed that she was completely comfortable in this extraordinary setting. She looked around at the magnificent building with wonder, taking in every detail of this moment she would remember forever. Prince Louis came last, holding tightly to his mother's hand. At his young age, the full significance of the occasion was beyond his understanding, but he could clearly sense that something very special was happening. His eyes were wide as he took in the size of the building, the number of people watching, and all the ceremonial decorations. He stayed close to his parents, drawing comfort from their presence while still managing to wave shyly at some of the onlookers. The family gathered together on the Abbey steps, creating a picture that would grace front pages around the world. For a brief moment, they were silhouetted against the ancient stone walls, representing both the continuity of tradition and the promise of the future. Prince William stood protectively near his wife and children, while Princess Kate's gentle guidance helped the children find their positions naturally. The steps of Westminster Abbey had welcomed royalty for nearly 1,000 years. Kings and queens, princes and princesses, had all climbed these same stone steps for coronations, weddings, and other great occasions of state. Today, the Wales family added their footsteps to this incredible legacy. Each step they took carried them closer to witnessing a moment that happens perhaps once in a lifetime. Photographers positioned around the Abbey entrance captured every angle of their arrival. These weren't just pictures for tomorrow's newspapers. They were historical documents that would preserve this moment for future generations. The family moved with natural grace, unrushed despite the attention focused on them. They understood that this brief pause on the Abbey steps was part of the ceremony itself. Security personnel were everywhere, but they remained nearly invisible. Their job was to ensure the family's safety while allowing this historic moment to unfold naturally. Years of planning had gone into coordinating every aspect of the arrival, from the timing of the car's approach to the positioning of the red carpet. Everything had been rehearsed, but the genuine emotions of the day made it feel spontaneous and real. The crowd gathered around Westminster Abbey represented people from all walks of life. There were foreign dignitaries in formal dress, members of Parliament in their finest attire, and representatives from Commonwealth countries wearing traditional ceremonial clothing. Some had traveled thousands of miles to be present for this historic day. All of them watched with respect and anticipation as the Wales family prepared to enter the Abbey. Inside the building, the greatest ceremony in British culture was about to begin. The Abbey had been transformed into a vision of pageantry and tradition. Every seat was filled with carefully invited guests, from world leaders to community representatives. The altar area had been specially prepared for the coronation ceremony, with ancient chairs, ceremonial objects, and religious artifacts that had been used for centuries of royal coronations. Prince George looked up at the towering spires above them and seemed to grasp, perhaps for the first time, the true scale of his future responsibilities. Princess Charlotte held her head high, her natural confidence shining through as she prepared to witness something extraordinary. Prince Louis continued to hold his mother's hand, finding security in her presence while taking in all the amazing sights around him. Princess Kate took one last look at her family before they entered the Abbey. Her husband stood ready to support his father on this momentous day. Her children were prepared to witness history and represent the future of their family's legacy. She felt an overwhelming sense of pride mixed with the recognition of how much their lives were about to change. The great doors of Westminster Abbey stood open before them, revealing glimpses of the magnificent interior where the coronation would take place. Ancient stone columns stretched toward vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows cast colorful patterns on the floor, and the sound of the organ could be heard faintly from within. This sacred space, which had hosted royal ceremonies for nearly a millennium, was ready to welcome them for another chapter in its remarkable history. As they prepared to cross the threshold from the outside world into the Abbey, the Wales family stood together one final time in the morning sunlight. In moments, they would become part of a ceremony that connected them to centuries of British history and tradition. The arrival was complete, and the coronation was about to begin. The massive doors of Westminster Abbey opened like a gateway to another world. As the Wales family stepped across the ancient threshold, they entered a space that seemed to breathe with the weight of 1,000 years of history. The temperature inside was cooler than the warm morning air outside, and the atmosphere felt charged with anticipation and reverence. Every footstep echoed softly against stone floors that had welcomed kings and queens since the time of William the Conqueror. Interior of the Abbey was absolutely breathtaking. Soaring Gothic arches stretched toward heaven, their stonework intricate beyond imagination. Stained glass windows painted rainbows of colored light across the ancient walls, telling stories of saints and monarchs in brilliant blues, reds, and golds. The ceiling seemed impossibly high, decorated with carved angels and royal emblems that had watched over countless coronations throughout the centuries. Prince William felt a profound sense of connection to his ancestors as he walked through the nave. This was the same path his grandmother had taken for her coronation decades earlier, the same route his great-great-grandmother had followed, and the same ancient stones that had supported the feet of kings and queens stretching back through centuries of British history. Each step carried him deeper into a tradition that was both deeply personal and magnificently public. The congregation was unlike anything the children had ever seen. Nearly 2,000 of the world's most important people filled every available seat. There were presidents and prime ministers from dozens of countries, their formal attire creating a sea of elegant black and navy blue. Representatives from Commonwealth nations wore traditional dress that added splashes of vibrant color throughout the ancient building. Religious leaders from various faiths sat side by side, their different ceremonial robes creating a beautiful tapestry of world traditions. Princess Kate moved with perfect grace beside her husband, her training and natural poise evident in every step. She had studied the layout of the abbey extensively, memorizing not just where they would sit but also the proper etiquette for acknowledging the various dignitaries they would encounter. Her smile was warm but appropriately formal, striking exactly the right balance for such a solemn yet joyous occasion. Prince George walked with remarkable maturity, his young shoulders carrying the invisible weight of his future crown with surprising ease. He recognized some faces in the congregation from photographs and briefings, understanding that these were the people his family worked with to serve their country and the Commonwealth. His eyes moved from face to face, taking mental notes of details he would probably remember for the rest of his life. As they processed through the abbey, heads turned to watch their progress. Many of the guests smiled warmly at the sight of the children, remembering their own young ones at home or simply charmed by the presence of the next generation of royalty. Princess Charlotte walked with natural confidence, her dress moving beautifully with each step. She seemed completely comfortable despite the formal atmosphere, occasionally offering small waves to familiar faces in the congregation. Prince Louis stayed close to his mother, his small hand finding hers whenever the grandeur of the moment felt overwhelming. The abbey was larger than any building he had ever been inside, and the number of people watching was far beyond his young experience. But his parents' calm presence helped him feel secure, and he began to relax as they made their way toward their designated seats. The Archbishop of Canterbury stood near the altar, his ceremonial robes magnificent in their ancient symbolism. He watched the royal family's approach with deep respect, knowing that he would soon perform one of the most sacred duties of his office. Around him, other religious leaders from various denominations and faiths prepared to witness this historic ceremony that would crown a new monarch and launch a new era. World leaders and foreign royalty rose slightly as the Wales family passed, a sign of respect that bridged international boundaries and diplomatic protocols. The President of the United States offered a warm nod. The Prime Minister of Canada smiled genuinely, and representatives from countries across 6 continents acknowledged the family that would help lead the Commonwealth into the future. The music of the Abbey's famous organ filled the sacred space with sounds that seemed to come from heaven itself. The organist, chosen for this honor after decades of distinguished service, played pieces that had been selected months in advance. Some were centuries old, others more contemporary, but all were chosen to reflect both the solemnity and the celebration of this extraordinary day. Television cameras positioned throughout the abbey captured every moment for the millions of viewers watching around the world. But the operators worked so discreetly that they were virtually invisible, allowing the ceremony to unfold naturally, while ensuring that people everywhere could share in this historic moment. The lighting had been carefully arranged to show the full beauty of the ancient building while respecting the sacred nature of the space. As they approached their seats, the Wales family could see the specially prepared area where the coronation ceremony would take place. The coronation chair, used for the crowning of monarchs for over 700 years, sat ready for the new king. Ancient regalia glittered under the abbey's lights, crowns, scepters, and orbs that represented centuries of British monarchy. These weren't just ceremonial objects. They were the physical symbols of the nation's continuity and tradition. The family's designated seats were positioned to provide perfect views of the ceremony, while also allowing them to be seen by the congregation and cameras. Princess Kate helped the children settle comfortably, making sure they had everything they might need for the lengthy ceremony ahead. She had brought small items to help keep Prince Louis content if he became restless, though she hoped the grandeur of the occasion would hold his attention. Prince William took his place with deep emotion visible in his eyes. From his seat he could see where his father would soon be crowned, where ancient vows would be spoken, and where the weight of kingship would officially pass to the next generation. He thought about his own future coronation, probably decades away, when he would sit in that same chair and take those same sacred vows. The acoustics of Westminster Abbey were perfect, designed by medieval architects who understood how to make every word carry to the furthest corners of the building. When the ceremony began, Every person in the congregation would be able to hear clearly, and the children would be able to follow along with the ancient rituals that were about to unfold. Distinguished guests continued to arrive and take their seats, each adding to the international significance of the occasion. Nobel Prize winners sat near Olympic champions, military heroes were positioned alongside humanitarian leaders, and representatives of charities and community organizations filled seats throughout the Abbey. This was truly a gathering that represented the best of British society and the wider world. The Wales family had found their place in this magnificent tapestry of history, tradition, and hope for the future. They were ready to witness the crowning of a king, the beginning of a new reign, and their own next step on the path toward their ultimate royal destiny. The ceremonial entrance was complete, and the coronation ceremony was about to begin in earnest. The great ceremony began with the sound of trumpets echoing through Westminster Abbey's ancient stones. The Wales family settled into their seats as the most important moment in British royal tradition unfolded before their eyes. This wasn't just any ceremony. This was the crowning of a king, something that happens perhaps once in a generation. The weight of that reality settled over everyone in the Abbey like a sacred blanket of reverence and anticipation. Prince William watched, with emotions swirling in his heart as his father prepared to receive the crown. Throughout his life he had known this day would come, but seeing it actually happen felt surreal and deeply moving. His father had waited decades for this moment, serving as heir to the throne longer than almost anyone in British history. Now, finally, the crown would rest on his head, and he would officially become the monarch he had been preparing to be his entire adult life. The Archbishop of Canterbury's voice filled the Abbey as he began the ancient coronation service. These were words that had been spoken for centuries, connecting this moment to every coronation that had come before. The language was formal and traditional, but the meaning behind it was timeless. The promise of service, the commitment to the people, and the sacred duty of leadership that comes with wearing the crown. Princess Kate kept a gentle eye on her children, while absorbing every detail of the historic ceremony. She understood that she was witnessing something her own children might never see again, until it was their turn to participate in a coronation. Prince George sat remarkably still, his young face serious as he watched his grandfather prepare to become king. Even at his age, he seemed to grasp that he was watching something that would shape his own future, in ways he was only beginning to understand. The ceremony moved through its ancient stages with precision that came from centuries of tradition. Each element had deep meaning, from the recognition of the new monarch by the congregation to the anointing with holy oil that had been used for royal coronations since biblical times. The Wales family watched as history repeated itself in the most beautiful way possible, connecting the present moment to an unbroken chain of British monarchs stretching back over 1,000 years. Princess Charlotte sat with perfect posture, her eyes wide with wonder at the pageantry surrounding her. The music, the ceremonial clothing, the golden objects being carried in procession. Everything looked like it had come from one of her favorite storybooks, except this was real, and she was part of it. She would occasionally glance at her parents, seeking reassurance that she was behaving appropriately, and they would offer encouraging smiles that told her she was doing wonderfully. The moment of crowning approached, and the entire Abbey seemed to hold its breath. The crown itself was a masterpiece of craftsmanship and history, decorated with precious stones that had witnessed centuries of British history. When it was lifted above the new king's head, every person in the congregation felt the significance of what they were witnessing. This was the moment when one era ended and another began, when the torch of leadership passed officially to the next generation. Prince Louis had been remarkably well behaved throughout the lengthy ceremony, but the grandeur of the moment seemed to captivate even his young attention. The music was unlike anything he had ever heard, played on an organ that filled the entire building with sound. The colorful robes and ceremonial objects caught his eye, and he pointed quietly at different things that interested him. His mother, whispering gentle explanations in his ear. As the crown was placed on the new king's head, Prince William felt a profound shift in his own identity. His father was now the king, which meant he himself had moved one step closer to that same destiny. The responsibility felt both distant and immediate. Like a mountain he could see clearly but wouldn't need to climb for many years to come. Still, watching his father take the sacred vows made his own future feel more real and more serious than ever before. The congregation's response to the crowning was deeply moving. These weren't just spectators at a ceremony. They were witnesses to history, representatives of the nations and communities that the new king would serve. When they proclaimed their recognition and support, their voices combined into something that seemed to make the ancient walls themselves vibrate with centuries of tradition and continuity. Throughout the ceremony, television cameras captured every moment for audiences around the world. Millions of people were watching from their homes, sharing in this historic moment despite being thousands of miles away. The Wales family understood that they weren't just witnessing this ceremony for themselves. They were representing everyone who couldn't be there, carrying the hopes and excitement of people everywhere who cared about this moment. The religious elements of the ceremony connected the coronation to something far greater than politics or pageantry. This was about service to God and country, about the sacred nature of leadership, and about the responsibility that comes with power. The prayers offered during the ceremony weren't just traditional words. They were heartfelt requests for wisdom, strength, and guidance for the challenges that lay ahead. As the ceremony reached its climax, the new king received the other symbols of monarchy, the scepter representing his temporal power, the orb symbolizing his role as defender of the faith, and the ring that bound him in marriage to his nation. Each object carried centuries of meaning, and receiving them transformed him from heir to monarch in the eyes of his people and the world. The music throughout the ceremony was absolutely magnificent. The Abbey's choir, considered one of the finest in the world, sang pieces that had been chosen specifically for this coronation. Some were centuries old, others had been composed especially for this day, but all of them added to the sense that something truly extraordinary was happening within these ancient walls. When the ceremony concluded, the newly crowned king turned to face his family and his people. The transformation was visible. He carried himself differently now, with the full weight and dignity of his new role evident in every gesture. Prince William felt immense pride watching his father in this moment, knowing how hard he had worked and how long he had waited for this opportunity to serve. The Wales family had witnessed something that connected them to every generation of their family that had come before, and every generation that would come after. They had seen history made, tradition honored, and the future secured through the continuation of an institution that had guided Britain through centuries of change and challenge. As they prepared to leave Westminster Abbey, the Wales family carried with them memories that would last forever. They had witnessed the crowning of a king, the beginning of a new reign, and their own next chapter in the ongoing story of the British royal family. The ceremony was complete, but its impact would resonate through their lives and their country for decades to come. Walking out of the Abbey, they were no longer just the family who had arrived that morning. They were witnesses to history, participants in tradition, and guardians of a legacy that would continue long after this perfect day had passed into memory.